Hello, and welcome to Nutrition Unfiltered, a podcast where science meets sass. I am Christy Maloney, registered dietitian and eating disorder specialist. This is a place where we talk nutrition, ask the hard questions, and have some fun along the way. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, I'm Christy, and welcome back to Nutrition Unfiltered. Today, we're going to dive into the Ozempic trend and all that comes with it so we can know the science and know what to expect if you decide to take the medication. Ozempic is a semaglutide, so it's part of the GLP-1 family of medications. Ozempic has been used for actually quite a while for treatment of diabetes. I think even over a decade. It was approved by the FDA in 2017 for use in the treatment of diabetes. So since then, people kind of saw, oh, well, if I take this medication, I can lose weight. It really blew up when the TikTokers found out about it. So the sudden craze and rise you've seen in that has, in part, been a large social media influence. So a GLP-1, it works two ways in your body. So whenever it was first, again, approved by the FDA for the treatment of diabetes, it actually stimulates your pancreas to make more insulin. So insulin is the hormone that if our blood sugar is high, it takes the glucose, the blood sugar into our cells, which is what decreases the blood sugar. So that's how that works from that perspective. The second way that it works is that it slows digestion. So food, there's a term for it. It's called gastroparesis. It sits in your stomach just a little, or a lot longer than maybe is normal in regular digestion. So when you hear of different side effects from the use of an Ozempic type medication, you often hear acid reflux, and that is because the contents of whatever you've eaten are sitting in your stomach creating that reflux. And then you also hear constipation, and that is just because the medication slows gastric motility, or just the movement of food through your stomach, small intestine, large intestine. That's just the mechanism of action. So we know that taken for diabetes, it's going to help reduce your A1C, which is your 3-month average of blood sugars, which is how you're diagnosed with diabetes or not. But then also it has this sort of delayed metabolism, delayed digestion. So those are the two ways that it's going to work. So semaglutides have been studied for longer than they've been popular, right? So we've heard about it over the past couple of years, but they've been studied for well over a decade. So we know that it can help, again, with lowering your A1C and improving diabetes. We know that it actually really does help with weight loss as long as you're on the medication. The things that I think we don't know as much about is there are warnings that it could cause thyroid cancer. So we're not exactly sure to what extent, are a lot of people affected by that, or some people affected by that. We just don't know. And like any other medication, yes, it's been around for, over a decade, which is still pretty new in medication world. I don't know that we know if there are any long-term side effects in 15, 20 years out. Those things remain to be seen. So the big question is, are GLP-1s effective for long-term weight loss? The short answer to that is we're not entirely sure, right? So we know that GLP-1s can create weight loss. We know that in the studies that have been done with people with diabetes, the effectiveness of that, kind of co-occurring with weight loss and blood sugar management, we know that that has been successful. But at this point, we have limited data on what the outcomes are going to be in 10, 15 years. What we do know for sure so far is that if someone loses weight on a GLP-1 medication, we are seeing that there is weight regain when someone stops the medication. So that would indicate that maybe it isn't sustainable long-term. I have seen some solutions to that, recommendations being maybe you take the medication, you lose weight, and then you're on a maintenance dose, or you go to, every other week dosing, that kind of thing. But the short answer is we're just not sure yet. Ozempic and GLP-1s are great for blood sugar management because the medication stimulates the pancreas to produce insulin, and insulin is the hormone that lowers blood sugar when you look at overall management of that, reduction in A1C, and just, getting to a better spot if you've been diagnosed with diabetes, we do know that it's really good for that. And we do know that, it does create short term weight loss. But those are the things we've seen this far. The other thing that I think we hear a lot about is the reduction of food noise. So, if you've seen people that are taking GLP-1s, Ozempic, that sort of thing, talk about the reduction in food noise, it can kind of be difficult to understand what that is, especially if you've never struggled with it. So, for someone that has elevated blood sugar and their body does not make enough insulin to get the glucose, the blood sugar into the cells, your body actually sees that as a state of malnutrition because your cells are not getting what they need. So, what creates the food noise is this kind of constant thought of what I'm going to eat next. I'm still hungry, those kinds of things, because your body actually feels like it's malnourished. And so, when you take these GLP 1s and your body is using insulin more effectively, it does reduce your appetite. It decreases that food noise, which is just like the chatter in your brain, the thoughts of food that are kind of ongoing for someone who has blood sugar issues, be that through diabetes or metabolic syndrome, where you have things like insulin resistance. So, for someone that's considering a GLP 1 injection just for weight loss, I would consider a few things. One, what is my ultimate weight loss goal? Is my expectation of what's going to happen something that could realistically happen? Or is it something that is informed by negative body image, disordered eating, disordered thought patterns, that sort of thing? So you want to make sure that you're going into it through like a healthy mindset. The other piece is to remember that, these medications do cause appetite reduction. So if you're not planning on being on it forever, you still want to incorporate healthy behavior change. You want to eat adequately and consistently and have your fruits and veggies and, do all the things that we know are kind of the fundamentals of like adequate, healthy nutrition. The other piece of that is really also considering, is this something that I want to stay on long term? And if it's not, you might gain your weight back, right? Like that's really what we're seeing. So if you know that and you feel like, all right, if I do in the future gain the weight back or if I stop this medication, what we see a lot of times, especially when I'm working with some of my clients, is that if you experience weight regain, it often feels way worse than just being at the weight like the whole time. You lose the weight, you feel really great and you feel on top of the world. But then when you gain it back, you feel like a failure and you feel even worse than you did before you even lost the weight. So things to consider as you think about your long-term mental and physical health. So Ozempic is like a fad diet or a trend, I think can be a little bit different than what we saw in the early 2000s when yeah, everybody was called fat for some reason or another. This is a medication that we know has some health benefits, but we also know that it can be overprescribed and abused. Like we know those things. I think that there are some parallels in that we see, if any celebrity loses weight at this point, it's, oh, are they taking the medication? Are they doing the shots? And honestly, that is very reminiscent of what we saw, in the early 2000s, with all the comments about people like Nicole Richie and Jessica Simpson and, the celebrities that we saw lose weight and gain weight. And there's always like constant speculation. I do see that there are parallels to that, which is really unfortunate because, this medication definitely has its place. But, I think it shows that we as a society have some evolution to do in terms of like just not talking about bodies. And especially for women, it's kind of if you gain weight, you're talked about. If you lose weight, you're talked about. And so much of the conversation, on social media, in the media in general, is about what bodies look like, who gained weight, who lost weight, how do they do it, that kind of thing. And it's a conversation that should really just die. If somebody loses weight, great. If somebody gains weight, great. We don't need to talk about it. We need to talk about all the other things that are going on so we don't see, in my practice, from the fallout, right, from like the early 2000s and sort of like all the weight talk that happened then, I'm really seeing that play out a lot in my clients because those are beliefs, right? The more weight loss, the better that we've been indoctrinated with. And it's been a lot of work to undo and unlearn those things. And so if we can just stop that, so the next generation doesn't have to deal with it, that'd be super. So if you're considering the GLP-1 medication for weight loss, you still need to have the knowledge. You still need to have the fundamentals of nutrition so that you can know how to eat when you stop the medication. So in the nutrition recovery workbook, what we go through is how to create balance in eating, how to allow all foods to fit, how to achieve food neutrality. So there's not the I'm good if I eat vegetables, but I'm bad if I eat cake. Because it's those things that are going to create long-term health sustainability alongside, a GLP-1 if you decide to take that. The workbook is a mix of education and then practical application exercises to help you explore your relationship with food and body more in depth. We'll put the link to the Nutrition Recovery Workbook in the show notes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me today on Nutrition Unfiltered. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share with others that might enjoy it as well. You can follow me on Instagram at eatingdisorder.dietitian. Thanks for getting sassy with me.